Wow, the history of the Indian subcontinent. I mean, where do you even begin? We're talking about a story that stretches back thousands and thousands of years. It involves countless different peoples, and it's the birthplace of ideas that literally changed the course of the world. It's just a dizzying thought, right? Knowing where to even start.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth do you unpack millennia of history in just 5 minutes? Well, the short answer is you don't. At least, not on your own. What you need is a guide. A map, really, drawn by someone who knows the territory inside and out. And for this journey, our guide, our map, is a masterpiece. It's the foundational book by the historian R.S. Sharma called India's Ancient Past. Now, this isn't just some dry collection of dates and names. No, think of it more like a blueprint, a detailed, systematic plan for understanding how this incredible civilization was built from the ground up. So let's dive in and see how he does it.
All right, so we're going to follow Sharma's lead here and start right at the beginning. We're talking about the foundations of a civilization, laying those very first bricks. These are the deep ancient building blocks that everything else, and I mean everything, was built on top of. Okay, so Sharma gives us a really clear roadmap, a timeline to follow. We kick things off way back in the Stone Age. Then we move into what's called the Chalcolithic period. That's the Copper Stone Age. And from there, things get really interesting. We see the rise of the Harappan civilization, which was just incredibly sophisticated with these amazing cities. After that, we enter the Vedic period, which is defined by some of the oldest sacred texts in the world. This timeline, right here, basically sets the stage for the whole epic story.
But here's what's super cool about Sharma's approach. It's his method. He basically says, look, you can't understand the story if you don't understand the stage. He dives deep into the geography, the ecology, the languages, all the things that created the backdrop for this history. For him, it's not enough to know what happened. The real key is understanding why it happened, right there in that specific place. Okay, so the foundations are laid. Now, the subcontinent enters a whole new phase. And this is an era of explosive growth. We're not just talking about land and empires, but an explosion of ideas. People started, well, drawing up entirely new blueprints for how society itself should function.
And right at the heart of all this change was a total revolution in thinking. Sharma goes into detail about the rise of these incredibly profound new philosophies, like Jainism and Buddhism. And you have to understand, these weren't just religions in the way we might think of them today. They were radical, challenging new ways of looking at the world. They questioned everything and offered completely different paths for people to follow, ideas that would eventually spread all across Asia and beyond.
And all of this incredible intellectual energy was happening right alongside a huge political shift. The old, smaller kingdoms started to get absorbed into these massive, organized states and empires. Suddenly, names you might have heard of, like the Mauryas and the Guptas, start to dominate the map. They're creating these huge, complex political machines on a scale that nobody had ever seen before.
And you know what? Sharma doesn't duck the difficult stuff. He doesn't shy away from the really tough questions. For example, he tackles these super complex historical debates head on, like the whole question of the origin of the Aryan culture. He uses all the evidence, linguistic, archaeological, to give a serious scholarly take on issues that people are still debating today. So we've had the foundations, then the blueprints. Now it's time to build the grand structures. This is the era that a lot of people think of as a classical age for India. It's when so many of the social, economic, and cultural features really get locked into place, forming the civilization we can recognize. So what exactly made this era so special? Well, Sharma points to three really big things. First, you have the formalizing of the Varna system, which created a very distinct social hierarchy. Second, there was another huge wave of people moving into cities, massive urbanization. And third, trade just exploded, with networks connecting the subcontinent to the rest of the known world. But the progress wasn't just about society and money. It was happening everywhere. I mean, this period saw mind-blowing developments in science, math, and philosophy. We're talking about huge leaps in astronomy and even the invention of the concept of zero. I mean, think about that. All this intellectual and artistic energy created a cultural legacy that is still so influential today. Of course, history is never neat and tidy, right? One era doesn't just stop and another one begin. And this is a really key part of Sharma's work. He very carefully breaks down the transition out of this ancient period. He shows us all the complex gears of change that slowly moved things from this classical age into what we now call medieval India.
Okay, so after that whirlwind tour through thousands of years, we're left with the big question. Why? Why does any of this matter? Why should we care about this completed building of ancient history? Well, the answer really comes back to the guide we've been following.
See, the author, R.S. Sharma, wasn't just some guy who wrote a book. This man was an emeritus professor and the founder and chairman of the Indian Council of Historical Research. We're talking about one of modern India's most respected and distinguished scholars. His life's work was basically making this incredibly complex history accessible to all of us. And this quote from a review really just nails it. It says, his narrative is richly textured. I love that phrase. It means it's not just one event after another. Instead, he shows you how society, politics, and culture are all woven together, like a tapestry. And he does it all by carefully using every single piece of historical evidence he can find. So that brings us right back to the beginning, in a way. When you think about this whole incredible journey, from the Stone Age all the way to massive empires, from the Varna system to the birth of Buddhism, it makes you wonder, what piece of this ancient past do you think is most alive today? For you, right now? Something to think about.